Okay, so I'll also send out the replay to anyone who couldn't make it today. And if you want to watch it again or if you have to leave early, that's no problem. Um, so this digital marketing for academic editors is sort of the second phase of this course that I was mentioning. Hi, Anna, by the way, welcome. Um, so, in becoming an academic editor, I help faculty learn the business side, how to start a business of academic editing. But we really just scratch the surface of, how do you set up a website and how do you start applying to editing agencies and publishers and those sorts of things. And so this digital marketing course is really the second phase and follows on from what we start in this beginning editing version. But I also know that a lot of academic editors, whether you were faculty or you took my course or not, have a hard time getting a steady stream of clients. And we sort of have that feast or famine cycle that can be so frustrating. And so this membership, I decided to do it as a membership instead of a course because I think that's a bit easier to handle when you're working also full time as an editor. Or full time as something else and an editor on the side. And so this really addresses, we're able to dive deeper into specific strategies for marketing. And so I think, people will have different preferences. Some people love social media, other people prefer to blog or, whatever the case may be. So you can pick and choose, but the goal is over the year, we will cover all of it. And then you can, take the approaches that are the best fit for you. So let me share my screen. All right. So thank you again for being here. I know, so again, there's some of you who are in my course, and some of you I just know from the various groups and editing. So thanks for joining us. Um, we're going to start off. I'll give you a little bit of background about me, just in case you don't know who I am. You can figure out why it is that I'm here talking to you. I'll go into what digital marketing is and how it can help you attract more clients who pay you higher rates so that you have the income you need to live comfortably and end feast or famine, as we were mentioning earlier. So I'm Paulina Cossette, and my company is Acadia Editing Services. And like I said, I'll tell you a little bit about me, and then we'll discuss the three marketing tools or steps that I think have worked the best for me. We have a couple more joining us here. Okay. And I'll also save time for Q&A at the end in case anybody has questions. So I'm a former political science professor. I grew up in Florida. I had two tenure track jobs before I left academia in 2019. My husband and I then moved across the country to Maine so that we could live near our families and have a nice place to raise our kids. But I had no idea what I was going to do for work. I had just published my book with Routledge and worked with one of their freelance copy editors who worked for Nugent Knowledge Works. You may be familiar with them. They're a packager that works with Routledge. And I thought, I could do what she does, right? She does this for a living, and I figured I could do the same thing at least until I found a more traditional non-academic job. So when I made the decision to start copy editing, for about 6 months, I spent hours online sorting through job ads. I tried creating a profile on Upwork. I got frustrated and felt like it was a complete waste of time. I applied to countless jobs advertised on LinkedIn and Indeed, and I either got no responses or I learned that they were scams. And, it was just is so frustrating and such a struggle to try to figure out the landscape and figure out what's a good company to work for, who's going to pay you more than the others. I'm sure you all are familiar with this experience. But I eventually figured out a system for finding and applying to reputable editing agencies, as reputable as they can be, and publishers, and the work started to roll in. So from 2020 through most of 2022, I continued working for editing agencies. Some of the ones I worked for were Scribendi, Charlesworth Author Services, which used to be fantastic. I was making 3 cents a word from them, which was like really great for an editing agency. They've recently been sold, and the quality, I think, just or the experience as a freelancer just went downhill, I think. Um, and, I tried several others that I just kept getting disappointed with. And as I was gaining more and more experience as an editor, I was also working for Nugent and Edward Elgar, the publisher. And so I was getting a ton of work from them. But I was also learning that there's a lot of problems with, when you're working for editing agencies and presses. And it's just not an ideal situation to be in. Um, of course, not only the pay is abysmal, but also, it's just the outfits are not always run very well. So I started searching for ways to get my name out there so that I could try to attract private clients. And I don't know, maybe this was just me, maybe others can relate to this, but I felt a lot of hesitation at first because I wasn't sure that I had what it would take to build up a base of private clients. I saw other people posting on, the academic editors groups and stuff saying that they work with private clients, and I just thought, oh, they've been doing this for 30 years or something, it's going to take me forever to be able to do that. And I just felt a total lack of self-confidence. But I also wanted to succeed. I wanted to be able to make a living of this since I was doing it full time. And so I started out trying a bunch of different things just to see what would work. And once I got my first few clients, I was hooked. I knew that working for private clients was the way to go. And I became really determined to figure out how to learn marketing, how to learn, how to put my business in front of faculty in particular, but also grad students, because I knew that working with those groups would be, the way to make more money and to be more successful. So in between having a second child and being a mom during the pandemic, in the second half of 2022, I started brainstorming ways to attract clients. I started out by contacting electronic thesis and dissertation offices, or ETD offices, at universities around the US. I got listed on several of their websites, and I also started cold emailing faculty at the universities where I got my degrees, two of them, two big schools in Florida. And so that was my first attempt at trying to figure out how to get clients. And I had some success initially, right? I started in late 2022 and I had just 6 clients that year, but just, in the last few months. In 2023, I expanded my efforts and I ended up with 35 clients last year. And this year in 2024, I've had over 55 clients. Several of them have hired me for multiple projects, and that's with very little, marketing on my part, because really in like March, April, May of this year, I turned my attention to developing my courses. And I've continued doing editing work, but I really haven't, that has not been the main focus, trying to find clients in that space. So now I work exclusively with faculty and grad students. I work about 30 hours a week. I take time off whenever I want. Last year, I earned $75,000 from editing alone. I know that it can be kind of awkward to talk about money, but I share that because I want people to know that that's possible, and that it's not, that's working 30 hours a week. That's not, killing myself working all the time. Um, and this year I earned over 70,000 from editing, and then another over 35,000 just over from my courses. And so I set the goal for myself this year to hit 6 figures, and I was able to do it. I'm also fairly confident that if I had just focused on editing this year, I still could have hit the 6 figure mark, because the first few months of the year, I was hitting $10,000 months. And so I think if that, assuming that kept up, and I don't see why it wouldn't have, I would have hit six figures just from the editing work alone. But looking back, I realized that it never should have taken me so long to build up this portfolio of clients. As I said earlier, a lot of it stemmed from self-doubt and just feeling like I had no idea where to start. I know there are some small workshops and other resources out there on marketing for editors, but I really couldn't find anything like what I've envisioned for this particular group, which is a course slash community that is specifically designed to help academic editors become better at marketing and running a business. And so that's why I've created these programs, is because I think too many academic editors charge far too little for high quality work that they're providing. We are all professionals and we have expertise. Many of us have advanced degrees, and we should be earning more than what's essentially $20 or $30 an hour. Um, and um, so that's why I created the program, right? Is I want to share what I've learned. I want to have a community of people who all understand each other, and I want us to be able to collaborate so that we can all benefit together. So let's go into this question of what is digital marketing, and then what are the strategies that I've used to have this success. Um, I'll also walk you through my framework that I'll be teaching in the membership program that's launching in a couple of weeks, and then I'll take Q&A at the end. So, like a good editor, when I was making this presentation, I went to Merriam-Webster's to look up the definition of digital marketing. They didn't have one, so I just went to Google, and it defines digital marketing as the use of digital technologies and the internet to create, distribute, and promote content to reach consumers. And I think that's a great summary of it. Essentially, it involves using internet-based tools like websites and blogs, social media, videos, and very importantly, email to contact potential customers or clients and tell them about what you're offering them and how you can help them. The advantages of digital marketing are that it's very inexpensive to use. In many cases, it's virtually free. And there's a huge return on investment, especially with email. So let's look at some of these different types of digital marketing that I think are helpful for editors. Your website, first of all, is what I call your home on the internet. And I tell, the beginning editors in my course that I don't think you have to have a website when you start off. You can have something like a LinkedIn profile. But I do think that as you're ramping up your business, you do need to have a website because especially because we're working with academics. These are people who do research, right? When they are looking to hire someone, they're going to be researching you and making sure that you're qualified. They want to see what your credentials and your education involve. And so having a website is just a very basic place for you, like I said, to have your home on the internet where people can find you and see that you're more legitimate. Another advantage of having a website is you can host your blog there. I use WordPress for my website, and I can easily post my blog articles there each week. We'll get into search engine optimization, SEO, in a minute. Social media is fairly self-explanatory, I think. I don't think you have to be on every platform, but if you can create accounts on 2 or even 3 of the different platforms, whichever ones you're most comfortable using, and then you can share the same content to each platform, that will help you save time. I use an app called Buffer. You can create a free account and you can connect 3 platforms. So I use Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, and you can just post one time on Buffer and it'll share to those 3 accounts. And so you're not having to go to each platform all the time and share your posts. Videos, I think, are also really effective because they let people see you. They get to know your personality and see that you're a professional and the way that you speak. They get to know your sense of humor. And that obviously we work closely with our clients, and so we want to be able to connect with them and to gel with them. And I think having a client see who you are and what your brand is essentially um, lets them know that they're going to like working with you. And also, very importantly, it lets them know that you are, in fact, a real person. You're not a scammer. And I see a lot of people posting on Facebook just like their Gmail address or something. And I don't think that today that's enough. I really think that the more we can do, like by having a website and a video on that website or a YouTube channel or something, that goes a really long way to building trust with people who are thinking about hiring us. Finally, email is highly effective. I'll talk more about my strategy for cold emailing in a minute, but this is definitely something that I think you need to be doing to get clients. So, as I mentioned before we started, everybody is going to have their own preferences, right? Some people might love social media, other people might be completely opposed to it, right? So, I've tried to give you some suggestions that a variety of things so that you can figure out what you're most comfortable with. The first activity that I would recommend is blogging. This is a long-term strategy that you can start working on now. If you put a small amount of effort into it each week by, writing 1,000 to 1,500 word post, that's going to have a really long-term payoff for relatively minimal effort. And I think the key here is two things. One is that you provide value, and two, that you take advantage of search engine optimization. So when you write a blog post, like I said, you don't have to write a lot. 1,000 words is a great length because, we're all busy. We don't have time always to read long articles. People are just sort of going to be scrolling through things anyway. Um, but when you sit down to write the post, I think it's important to think about who it is that you serve. What are the types of clients that you work with or that you want to work with, and how do you help them solve their problems? So maybe you want to write an article about how to publish a journal article or how to spruce up your job market letters or your CV or whatever the areas are that you focus on, and the types of clients that you want to attract. For some of us, it's books, faculty writing books. For others, it's grad students. Whatever the case is for you, that's the audience that you want to speak to in these blog posts. Then I think to improve the chances that people will actually find your articles, you want to make sure that you have strong SEO. And for me, the easiest way to achieve this is to think about the questions that people are Googling. So if you are a grad student and you've never published a journal article before, maybe you're going to do a search for how to publish in an academic journal, or how to turn my dissertation into a book, or how to write an academic CV, or what. There's countless things out there that you can come up with, but I've done a deep dive into SEO and it all amounted to, I think you have to think about what people search for. And then once you know those, you have a list of those questions, you can make those the titles of your blog posts. And again, this is not a change that's going to happen overnight. For SEO to start picking up these articles, it's probably going to take around 6 months to a year. But it's, with each post, you're planting little seeds that will end up paying off in the long term. And so if you sprinkle those questions and those keywords into your article title, into the headings and subheadings throughout the piece, this tells Google and the other search engines what the piece is about, and it essentially helps connect you with the people who are searching for these questions. If you want to learn more about this, I talk about it in episode 7 of my podcast, Leaving Academia, Becoming a Freelance Editor. And I'll link to here to my blog, or the part of my website that has my blog. And then you can see, why can I never find what I need to find? Uh, there we go. Chat. Here we go. That's the first few articles on there about becoming an academic editor, because that's kind of the shift that I took this year. But if you scroll down, you'll see the articles I was writing about becoming, not becoming, about, how to get published, how to beat writer's block. There's one on that I wrote on AI that has gotten a lot of traction. And there's another one on red flags to look for when you're hiring an editor that I also posted on Reddit, and that's brought a lot of people into my website when I look at the traffic. So the next thing that has been really helpful for me is interacting in Facebook groups. And I honestly, I'm sure there are people out there who have a lot of success with Instagram and Facebook posts, like on your page. I personally do not enjoy making content. I feel like it's exhausting. And I get traction, but and people follow me, but I'm not convinced that it brings in a ton of work. I have, however, had a lot of luck being in Facebook groups. So I'm a mom, and so I'm in a lot of like academic mamas groups, and you'll see people posting in there about, I can't format my dissertation. How do I do this in Word? And I'll just slip into the comments and say, oh, hey, here's how you do it. By the way, I'm a former professor and an academic editor. And I think it's so effective because it's not just that person who made the post that's seeing your comment, it's everybody who's looking at it and liking it. And, I've gotten a ton of work through Facebook groups that way. Um, Obviously, you want to respect the rules of the group. You don't want to advertise too much if you're not supposed to. Sometimes you can slip in, like if you're giving a talk like this or something, you can slip it in. But I think the best way is just to make yourself present and be helpful. Finally, and I think this is probably the most important information for you to take away from this talk, is for me the importance of cold emailing. Or you can apply this strategy to cold messaging if you want to do it on LinkedIn or even on Instagram or something. But as owners of academic editing businesses, I think we have a huge advantage compared to other business owners because our potential clients, faculty and grad students, have their names and their backgrounds and their contact information all publicly available on the internet for free, right? If you're selling cars, you can't just find people on the internet who want to buy a car. That's hard to do. But if you're targeting faculty, you can go straight to university websites and find out all the information you need to get in touch with them. And so my suggestion is to start out by drafting a very basic introductory email. Choose a handful of universities and departments that have faculty in the subfields you work in, and then just email them. You can do this individually if you want to address your email to Dr. So-and-so and, include your template email there. That's fine. Or the way I ended up doing things is I just blind copied 100 people on one email because I felt like, casting a wider net would be more effective and get more eyeballs on my email. But either, whatever approach you want to take is fine. I know that both work. It's just totally up to you. The key point here, I think, is instead of, especially those of us that are academics, we're used to talking about ourselves and giving our bio and saying, I got my degrees here and there and I've published these papers. I think that's the wrong approach because the person that you're writing, they are going to want to know what your background is, but that's not the key point, right? The key question that they have is, how can you help me? So when you're drafting these emails, instead of focusing on your experience and your publications, you want to center the email on what you can do for the potential client. How can you solve their problems? Maybe if you're sending these out around this time of year, you might put a spin on some emails like, Schedules are incredibly busy during the holidays. Let me take care of the nuances of formatting and proofreading so you have more time to spend with your family or something like that, right? Whatever your niche is, if you work with grad students, or I tended to work with a lot of moms who were faculty, and so I always put the work-life balance spin on things. Whatever niche you want to fit yourself in or that you already fit in, you want to add that spin to those emails, right? And that's what you want to emphasize is how can I help them? Why you should hire me because I can help solve all these problems for you. Now, will you get an immediate flood of replies? No, that's likely not going to happen, right? But if you send 100 emails and you get 3 replies, I think that's a pretty good start, especially if one or two of them is a book, from a faculty member. That's a good sized project. Um, and if you are combining this strategy with some of the others that I've talked about, like social media or the ETD lists or blogging, right? Having this variety of approaches is what's going to help bring in more clients to your inbox. It's also very likely that you won't get a reply right away from your cold emails, but and this just happened to me yesterday, you might send an email and then 3 or 4 months down the road, someone will reply to that email because that's when they happen to have a project available. So yesterday I got an email from this guy. I think I had emailed him last year. And in my contact form on my website, I asked, "How did you hear about me?" And he said, "Oh, I don't remember. I just had your website bookmarked." And I went back and I saw his name and I had cold emailed him like a year ago. And yet he saved the website and now he has a project ready. And so he's getting ready to hire me now. So like I said before, like blogging, this is a seed that you plant today that will have a long-term payoff. I'll also note that in 2024, I just looked at my stats for the year. I had 55 clients, and 16 of those came from cold emails, and that was the largest group. The next was Facebook groups. 11 clients came from Facebook groups. So that has definitely been my most successful strategy thus far. And like I said, if you want to take the same approach on LinkedIn, you just send connection requests. You include a little note, obviously shorter than what you would write in an email, but emphasizing how you can help them. And that's another great way to try to connect with people. Okay, so let's briefly talk about this membership program, and then I'm happy to hang out with you and answer any questions about marketing of the program or anything you want to chat about. Here's the enrollment link if you decide you want to join. Um, Basically, this is going to be a monthly membership for $29 a month. Each month is going to have a different theme or topic, and there will be a challenge that's associated for that month, for that topic for you to complete. And so some of the topics that I've mapped out for the year will have to do with building or improving your website, creating an email list and a lead magnet to get people to join your list, blogging, the various social media platforms, creating email welcome and nurture sequences, which I think is important for getting people, once they're on your list, you nurture them so that they'll decide to hire you later on. Um, how to set your pricing, how to come up with the different offers like editing packages or coaching packages, sort of all, I've come up with a ton of ideas, but I'm also open to revising the topics according to what people in the group are interested in and what questions you have. So at the start of each month, you'll get a video from me that's about 10 or 15 minutes long, explaining the topic, giving you the information you need. And I'll give you details on the challenge for the month, the goal for you to complete for this particular theme. Some months I'll also include templates or resources that I think would be helpful that are related to that topic. So for example, In January, we're going to start with building or improving your website. So you'll get a video of me the first week of January talking about the different components of the website, um, your call to action, having a contact form, all of these kinds of things. And I'll send you out a template, or some people call this a wireframe for your homepage so that you know exactly how I think you should structure it. Of course, this is totally up to you how to do these things, and it's all going to have your flavor and your personality. Um, but the guidelines will be there. Then you'll spend the next 2 weeks, the first 2 weeks of the month, working on these projects. And in the middle of the month, we'll meet on Zoom for 60 minutes as a group to answer questions, to talk, to, address any challenges that you're having. I'd like to meet the second Tuesday of each month at noon Eastern, if that's possible, but I have some flexibility there if that doesn't work for a lot of people. Um, and then throughout the month, you'll also have exclusive access to our Slack community. If you're not familiar with Slack, it's sort of like a chat room, I guess is the best way to explain it. You can post questions and people reply. You can post files and videos and all kinds of things. We're using it now in my Becoming an Academic Editor course, and I think it's been kind of a fun place to shoot messages back and forth during the day. And I've shared like some job ads and things like that. So you'll have access to that 24/7. And so you can get immediate feedback in Slack. And then during the monthly Zoom call, I'll be there to answer questions, to talk with you about the topic or the challenge or really anything that you want to talk about. And then you'll spend the last 2 weeks of the month wrapping up your progress and trying to achieve your goals in the challenge, posting about your success in the challenge in the group, and so forth, as we all work together. So for just $20 a month, you will learn the basics of digital marketing and how to attract high value clients. You'll belong to a supportive community of people just like you who work in the same niche, who understand the challenges, and who are there to cheer you on. But also we're there to hold each other accountable, because I think it's very easy for us to get lost in the editing work and to keep pushing off the marketing and the business until we have more time. And I think of it a lot like academics who push off their writing until they have more time. But the goal of this group is to support each other, to help each other get over the stumbling blocks, and to make sure that we get the work done. And so the last thing I'll say before I take questions is that I think this is really important as business owners. And I think marketing is important and investing in your business is important. And we tend to think that we'll just take whatever work comes in and it is what it is. But that's not a sustainable plan. And in fact, it's not even a plan at all, right? Um, and I know from my experience and from watching my students who have, in this other course that have been implementing these ideas, if you do take the time to make a plan, to invest some time and also some money in your business, you're going to see those investments pay dividends for you by the end of the year. And so you could be starting 2026 in an entirely different and much more financially secure place, while also getting to spend time with a really awesome group of people. So thank you again for being here. And I'm happy to take any questions that you have about marketing or the program or anything that you'd like to chat about. Okay. Uh, Feel free to unmute if you have a question or whatever you'd like to do.
Hi, Paulina. I have a question.
Hi.
Um, how many hours do you think you spend on marketing per week compared to billable hours? Like, do you kind of try and set a limit or a goal to meet?
That's a good question. So I will, since you're all editors, I'll focus my answer on the editing work, because when I moved into this course and coaching, that has required a lot more marketing. But as far as just focusing on getting editing clients, I once I figured out what worked, I put a system in place so that I would not have to spend a lot of time. Um, in particular, with the cold emails, I use a program called Hunter that is, they have paid options, but I use the free version. Basically, you come up with an email template, you put it into Hunter, and you import your list of, I think it'll allow you like up to 400 email addresses per email that you send, and you set it and forget it. You put all the settings you want for how often you want, excuse me, the emails to go out. And, so that's like once a week, I will open up the template, import the email addresses, and it sends them out. And so that's sort of working in the background while I'm doing editing work and other kinds of marketing. Um, so that's maybe an hour a week, right, to also collect the email addresses. Um, I think that the blogging, if you aim to release a blog post per week, it depends how quickly you write, but maybe an hour to 2 hours if you count like mapping out your topics for the week or for the month rather. Um, and it's pretty easy to just post it on your website. And I also would share those posts on Medium. I created an account on Medium, but I would just copy and paste the text into Medium, and it takes 5 or 10 minutes, just to post that. Um, and then the thing that I think is a real time suck is like the Instagram and the Facebook posts and stuff. And that can definitely be a black hole. Um, and so I think it's important to have a strategy so that you don't end up spending a ton of time on there. And we'll get into this more in the membership of like how you can come up with a content calendar and try to repurpose a lot of content. For the different platforms and that sort of thing. Does that help?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I've been posting on LinkedIn, but sometimes I get distracted.
Yeah, and it has taken me a good year to go from fly by the seat of my pants to like actually having a plan. And I guarantee you having a plan is so much better, because you take like, whatever your block of time is for the week or the month to work on these things, and you have your little to-do list that you just repeat every month, and you tick all the boxes, and that's much better than just trying to come up with stuff on the fly. Other questions?
I have kind of a I mean it's really specific to me, but I've been working as an academic editor for like 7 years, and and a dissertation coach as well, and I'm noticing I'm kind of want to figure out how to get into a new area, which is working with faculty members and helping them figure out how to guide their students in editing, because I find that faculty members are doing so many things and often their supervising is doesn't get that much attention. And I don't have experience as a faculty member. I left academia after finishing my PhD, but I imagine it's a sensitive subject to approach faculty members and find out, do you think you have the right skills to advise your students on editing? Because uh, that's something you're supposed to kind of already know how to do, even though no one tells you. Kind of wonder if you have any thoughts on how to do marketing to something that might be kind of a sensitive issue like that, which is reaching out to faculty members or trying to market to them on something that they might not want to admit they need help on, or, I can't imagine exactly how they would start going about looking for information, but thinking about trying to get into that area, but I really don't know how to start approaching people without it making it seem like I'm targeting them because they're inadequate in some way, or so it's kind of it's very specific to me, but maybe it will help other people who are trying to figure out how to market and they have like a niche that's going to be they have to think their way through. So if you have any ideas.
Yeah, I think, well, as editors, we have to sort of be careful in the comments we leave, right? And the way that we change text because we don't want to offend someone, And so I think you're sort of dealing with a similar challenge there, that you're saying, I want to help you with this challenge, but I don't want you to feel bad that, you struggle with this or something. And so if you're going to do like cold emailing which by the way, cold emailing doesn't just work for editing. You can do it for coaching or whatever you want to do. Um, I would focus on their pain points, and just off the top of my head, thinking like, um, you're a busy professor who's trying to publish and serve on committees, and you also have to supervise these student research and, you know, uh, you kind of hit on like the fact that they just have a lot going on, and trying to all like pouring yourself into your own work takes all your energy, but trying to help students, you have nothing left to give your students, or obviously you want to phrase it delicately, but um I can help you come up with a plan to coach your students or supervise their research, so that you can go back to focusing on your work or something like that, right? So I think if you make it not about their skills, but about the context that they're working in, right? That they're pouring everything they have into their own research, and then on top of it, they have to be an advisor. Maybe that's a good approach. And Wendy's the marketer in here, so really she could probably speak to these things better than I can, but
I think that what you said was spot on. I was just down in my notes, the painter's house is never painted. I don't know if you've heard that before, but basically it speaks to if I'm a painter and I'm trying to get work to be a painter on someone's, it's exactly what you said, Paulina, in terms of, that's where I'm spending all my efforts is outbound. And that means that maybe I need some help in terms of marketing myself or some of the things that I need to do, for myself. It's about where the focus is and where I could get help with things that I can't get to.
yeah, that's a great
Yeah, thank you for
metaphor.
that.
I like that.
Yeah, I mean,
Sorry.
it is a delicate way of putting something that I think is actually another problem, but you're right, you have to phrase it. I mean, I just think people don't get training in that. It's just not as one of the million things you do as a faculty member. You only like, and the only reason I'm an academic editor is because my supervisor actually was a very good editor and helped me go through all this and gave me those skills, and a lot of times I feel like for me, like a substitute supervisor for students. And I want to help the students, but also faculty members. I don't think they get opportunities to do that kind of training, Like once you're a faculty member, at least the universities I've been at, they don't just have courses that I know of where faculty members are taught to develop a system for how to deal with. Because editing a dissertation at any moment is a very complicated process. And if you never develop your own system, like I have a system now because I edit them, but I did not when I wrote mine, and I don't know how a lot of faculty members do it. So I appreciate helping me think that through a little bit.
Yeah, thanks for asking it. Other questions?
I have a question. So I have not been in academia for some time. I left for the reasons that people leave academia, I think. So I'm not doing a whole lot of editing right now, and I don't have a lot of experience with editing sort of in the first place. So I'm wondering if there are topics that someone who's sort of in my situation would be able to write about, to blog about. You say that blogging is something that helps with digital marketing, but I'm sort of not coming up with any ideas about what kinds of things I would be competent to write about in my situation.
So I think that you're more competent than maybe you feel, right? And it can be tough to come up with a list of ideas of blog posts right off the bat. I'll be honest that I know a lot of people don't like AI, but I use ChatGPT to try to help me when I'm stuck like that. I will never use it to write, but I will say, I want to write, give me a list of 10 blog article titles on, that can help academics publish or something like that. And I never even take exactly what it gives me, but at least gets the brain moving, you know? And so I would think about, well, since you're just starting out, I think you need to figure out who you want to work with. You know, is it grad students? Is it faculty? Is it what, you know, and within those two big groups, what niche do you want to work in? So like Autumn said, she mainly coaches grad students finishing their dissertation, and you know, different, everybody has like their own thing that they like to do. And so I would think about, who do you want to work with and what are some of the biggest problems that they face, you know? So if you want to work with grad students, it doesn't have to just be about writing your dissertation. It could be time management, or I wrote a piece on writer's block, right? How do I get out of writer's block? It could be organizing your CV or applying on the job market, or, you know, I mean, there's really, it's really endless, but just think about the problems that your ideal client faces, and you write a short post with, you know, 3 tips on how to blah, 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 whatever it is.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have kind of a piggyback question to what Kyle asked. I'm getting started. I'm a terminally all but dissertation. I wrote about half a dissertation before I left academia. My question with getting into editing is, I guess there's 2 parts to it. One is I'm going to need experience, so I'm assuming that I should work for agencies, at least to some extent. And I've got a couple of questions about that, and I know you talk about that elsewhere, but do you think that would help me attract clients in the ways that you've described here? And then my second question about that is, I had somebody warn me about non-compete clauses in contracts with agencies, and I'm concerned about that. If that's going to hamper me in moving to, because I really would prefer to work with private clients as much as possible. I like interacting with people and talking through people's ideas and help when I'm helping them work. That's what I did with my students. So yeah, I don't know if that's clear, but those are my questions.
So let me take the second one first. My experience with the agencies and with the agencies is that you cannot solicit. Usually they have you sign saying that you will not solicit work from their clients. So people who come to them. And so that I don't think like any of them say you can't work for anyone else or anything like that. You know, like you can't also take private clients while you're working for them, because they don't pay you enough to not be able to take private clients too. And so that's a fairly simple solution, is just don't try to contact their clients, you know, who are working through them, or who are
I think
hire. Yeah.
sorry. I think non-compete clauses are now illegal. Didn't the FTC in like April, I thought they ruled that non-compete clauses were no longer legal.
That would be very interesting.
I will send you. I'm sorry to interrupt, Pauline.
No, that would be helpful.
It's so hard on Zoom. I think people are done and then they're not. I'll put a link.
Yeah, thank you. No, that would be good to know, but I still think that you know, they're probably going to have you sign an agreement that, especially because a lot of the companies are outside the US, they may have you sign an agreement that says you cannot, you know, if Joe Smith goes through Scribendi, you cannot then contact Joe Smith through LinkedIn to try to, you know, connect with them individually. As far as where you should start, you know, the process that I advocate in the course and in the workshop that you did is to start with editing agencies, because my philosophy is that academics, even if you didn't finish your PhD, you still know how to write a scholarly paper. You know how to publish, right? You just need practice editing. And so the value of the editing agencies is that the work just comes to you and you get the practice doing the edits while you're making money, right? As opposed to paying a certificate program or something. I don't think and maybe others will have a different opinion, but I don't think that a private client like a faculty member or a grad student would care either way if you have that experience working for editing agencies. I think they're going to look at testimonials on your website, any kind of reviews that you're getting. I think they're going to look at your, if you have any publications, your degrees, right? I don't think not having finished the PhD will matter. They're going to look at their interactions with you. And that's another reason why videos, I think, are important, because if you can have a video where you're sitting there talking to your audience, it shows that you're a real person and what your personality is like. So does that answer your question? Okay. Oh, good, Anna. So good to see you. Glad that we'll be able to meet again. Uh, oh yeah, Michelle said sometimes when you're working for an agency, you don't know who the authors are anyway. That's right. Yeah. Any other questions?
I kind of actually just have a suggestion, which is something that's come in to my work in editing. If you don't know where to start, I think a lot of times students who are always going to need more help, or authors who are going to need more help, are non-English, non-native English speakers. And that's a good way to think about meeting people, because processing others' academic writing and then doing any kind of academic writing, even for someone who has a PhD, if they're not a native English speaker, I think there's always a demand for that kind of editing as well. So I think that's a way to start building a business, as well as by looking at those individuals and having that kind of a specialization, because they're always going to need that extra support, I think, to make it up to par with their English speaking counterparts.
Yeah, and I didn't talk much about the ETD list, but are any of you who are editing already, have you gotten work from those? Or maybe Autumn, do you get your grad student clients from those lists? Or
From what list?
the formatting offices at universities, sometimes they're called electronic thesis and
Oh,
dissertation.
I've never gone that route. Usually people just contact me specifically if they want formatting. I mean, I built a lot of my business on Upwork initially. So that's how I got my start. Formatting, I kind of hate it. So, but I would rather do developmental editing
Oh,
and
that's right.
be exhausted than do that. But I get a lot of formatting work just because it's a separate skill. But yeah, sharing,
Yeah,
yeah.
so and I think I'm definitely not an expert in SEO, but when I was trying to learn about it, I did read as much as I could, which is just it's a horrible subject in my opinion. But um I think that so the way that Google ranks your website when somebody does a search for an academic editor or something, is it looks at not just the content and the keywords on the pages, but it also looks at other websites that link to you. So I think these are called backlinks or something like that. And so when you are on, I'm not sure about Upwork because it's like a closed platform, but other websites, like if you write an article for somebody else's blog and they link to your website, or you're on these ETD lists and they link to your website, it sort of lends credibility to the fact that your website is legitimate. And so Google will rank you higher because of that. So that's another reason to try to get on ETD lists, or maybe like if you're on the EFA list or something, if that's public, the Editorial Freelancers Association, that may be helpful too. But I contacted these formatting offices at maybe 10 different universities and got on their list a couple of years ago. And I still get requests from grad students, wanting to hire me. Usually they don't, because I've raised my rates now and they can't afford me, thankfully. But, lucky to have gotten there. But, and sometimes if I have an opening, I'll lower my rates just because I understand what being a poor grad student is like. Um, But yeah, that's an easy way that you spend very little time, getting on these lists, and then your name is there essentially permanently. And I've also had faculty contact me because they went to their library or their formatting office or whatever and found this list, and because they needed an editor. Any other questions or things people want to share? Something that's worked for you or not worked for you? I think a couple people have, I saw the email come in. A couple people have already signed up for the membership, and Anna said, so that'll be three. I can, if you want, I can say more about the schedule for the year. In January, like I said, we'll start off looking at websites. And talk about why do you need a website, designing the header, coming up with a one-liner to sort of clarify to potential clients what it is that you're offering them. In February, I was going to talk about cold emails and ETD lists because I think that's the uh, activities that have the highest payoff, right? You spend the least amount of time sending cold emails and getting on these ETD lists, but yet you can have the most clients coming in for those activities. And so an example of like the challenges for the website would be to make these changes to your website or get it set up if you haven't already, to make sure you have a contact form where people can email you, to make sure you have testimonials on there, those sorts of things. For the cold emails, it would be to draft a template, the email that you can send out to people, and start collecting emails. And I can show you some different apps that I use that make that a lot easier. So you're not having to copy and paste emails from websites. There's stuff, there's free apps that you can use as a browser extension that will collect the emails for you. March, we were going to talk about email lists. So how do you choose an email service provider? I like either MailerLite or Kit. And you can set yourself up on there. They even have free plans. And basically, every time somebody fills out a contact form on your website, it sends it to your email service provider. And you can then funnel those people into what we call a welcome sequence, where you tell them, here's who I am, here's the services I offer. So, for example, when somebody contacts me and inquires about my services, whether or not they hire me, I put them into my email provider and they go into my welcome sequence where they learn about who I am, and then a few days later they get an email about what can an editor do for you, and a few days later they get how do you work with me, you send me your document and I whatever, like all the different steps. And so when you set up these emails, somebody might contact you to work with you and they're not really sure yet, but you have this sequence in the background that is nurturing them, right? And helping to build trust. And a week or two later, they've gotten 5 or 6 or 7 emails from you and they're like, oh, I really do like this person. I am going to hire her, And so it's sort of a way to automate those interactions with potential clients so that you're going about your day and your business, but you've got this system in the background that's working to build trust and all of that with the client.
It's really about kind of having this professional image, isn't it? As well, kind of having that clear website and professional kind of communications, and setting up these strategies in the beginning.
Yeah, and you had asked about how much time do you invest in it? And I think there are so many tools that are available today that, yeah, it takes hours on the front end to set up your email sequences and stuff. But once you get that in place, it really should be this well-oiled machine that's just constantly working in the background, So now somebody contacts me, their name automatically goes on, it gets tagged as a new inquiry, and they get dumped into this nurture sequence. And I don't do anything except respond to their initial inquiry with, whatever my rates are and that sort of thing. And so, I think a lot of editors out there don't realize that we have these tools available to us and we can sort of professionalize and create systems that work to help us run our businesses. Any last questions before? I'm happy to stay longer if anybody wants to chat or has questions or anything like that.
I have a quick question, possibly for you, but also maybe for Autumn. I'm curious about working with students whose first language is not English. I taught for a long time at the University of Washington as a grad student, and is on the Bothell campus. I taught up there for a number of years. I had a lot, especially in my later, I left in 2015, especially in my later years teaching, I had a lot of students. They started admitting a lot of international students because they earned more money for it, and they did not provide services to support them in writing in English. I was teaching composition and literature classes. And so I did sort of get used to working with students and helping them, at least in a moment, learn a little bit about, how better to translate what they can say in their native language into English, where it would read more smoothly to an English speaker. So I'm wondering if that's like an asset. Like, do you find that as well, or are there a lot of people who contact you asking about that?
Somebody, I wouldn't say a lot contact me, but I mean, certainly I get a lot of people whose first language is not English, sending me their papers to edit and that sort of thing. I did get an email a week or two ago from a lady who essentially wanted a coach to work with her to help improve her English. And I tried to help her as best I could, but I just am not really set up for that kind of coaching practice. I do wonder, and Autumn can probably speak to this too, is if there is a niche for someone who specializes, like if that's something that really interests you and excites you, if that's like a coaching practice you could start, and I think coaching goes really well hand in hand with editing, where you could specialize in, ESL or EFL, whatever, English is an additional language, with those clients and get, have some kind of coaching package that you came up with where you edit their papers and you meet on Zoom and you explain, why why you made these changes, or like whatever it is that they're needing. I would think there would be a market for that, but I don't know. What does everybody else think?
Well, actually, I went to UW Seattle. That's where I got my bachelor's and my first master's. I'm in Seattle. So,
That's
um,
where I was
I
working
mean,
on my PhD on the Seattle campus.
okay, yeah. Um, I mean, I even have one student who signed up with me. She's from India. She hired me right when she started her PhD coursework in the US because it's a very different environment. Like when she got to group work, she was like, what, how does this whole thing work? So there's cultural things and also things about editing and knowing the standards of academia in another country. So I think that your background, that's definitely what you should lean into. And people need, I've ended up just in the course of things, people just contact me and I do, all kinds of things. Because once you're a trusted editor, people tend to come to you, oh, you edited a paper, I'm applying for this job, you're an editor I know, you know. But there's a lot of like cultural translation that goes into doing academic work in another country. And I think your background in that, also your technical expertise in English and everything, you can think about what coaching, I find it like with this particular client, it's not, she she keeps making the same mistakes. She's not, I wanted to do more coaching and she's not really doing that. She's just so focused on like doing her coursework and her proposal and everything. So there could be some people who are more interested in coaching. She's more interested in just editing and she's not really changing her writing that much. But yeah, I think that's definitely something to explore and figure out how to get in contact with those students. So yeah,
And
I think
you,
it sounds like you have a background for it.
yeah, and I think, I another strategy with cold email is not just to contact individual faculty, but to contact the admin assistants at like for you it might be like the International Student Center or um whatever organization exists to help those students on campuses. I contacted some research institutes, and there was one that I guess the lady who was the admin assistant that I reached out to, she liked me because she referred me to like 5 or 6 people who were visiting scholars. I think they were all from Japan or somewhere, and so their English was not great, and they hired me to edit their papers that they were publishing as part of, the program that they were in. So that's another strategy is directly contact the admin assistants or, program managers or whatever for these organizations, and they'll keep your information handy and then they share it whenever, because you know how a faculty or a department is, right? You've got faculty coming in and out of the mail room all the time, and the admin assistant is right there at the center of everything and can sort of share your information with people. All right.
Thank you both very much. It was very helpful. Great ideas.
Yeah. So, if nobody has any other questions, I will look forward to seeing some of you in a couple weeks. And other than that, just, send me an email if you have anything you think of. And hopefully, I would love to see you in this membership. I think it'll be fun to have a group like this where we get together once a month and we chat on the Slack channel and, come up with ideas and that sort of thing. So. All right. Well, thank you for being here and have a great holiday and best wishes.
Um,
Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye,
Thank
everybody.
you very
Thank
much.